Okay, so for your collage, I'm going to show you a few materials. And this is the first thing that I want you guys to do is just collect a bunch of materials that you guys see around at home that you can use that have interesting colors and textures and transparencies, etc., etc. Okay, so I'm just gonna very quickly go through what I found and how I would use it and what I find interesting about it. And I want you guys to do the same. You can make a video, you can post some pictures with some descriptions on it. Okay, so the first thing I did was just kind of look around my office. I found some cards. I thought that the color was interesting. You can use the blue, you can use the gold lines for something. A magnet has like an interesting sort of texture and shine to it. I also found some pieces of paper that were not really typical. They had an interesting sort of transparency to it that's gonna allow me to layer things in a more interesting way. Stuff like this can also be found like in greeting cards or like business cards and things like that. And you can just sort of cut out like what you don't want out of it. Here's like an old brush that I think I can cut up and use some of the bristles to create an interesting texture, create interesting transparency. Another thing that you can look at is also like home improvement stuff. And I think a lot of times they have some really interesting color schemes. This is kind of, I think this is like, it kind of binds like pieces of drywall together or something like that. It has like a sticky back to it. But it's like an interesting sort of mesh, very nice color as well. Some rope I can use. I can manipulate it by unrolling it. I can dye it with just some diluted paint or even like spices. I can use marker and sort of like color it. Look in your kitchen. Here's like a little bag that holds avocados. Some of these are really interesting, great texture, great sort of pattern and repetition as well. Some wire. You can look outside of your house in your garden, and I've been sort of collecting little weeds that are growing all over the place now and pressing them. And they're kind of interesting. It's nice texture, nice transparencies. They're really great to sort of layer as well. To press flowers and leaves, all you have to do is sandwich them between two flat things. It could be like a big book or something like that, or I use these little pieces of plastic. Other stuff, I think this is like a home improvement sort of thing to make furniture. You can print stuff out from the internet, and of course that's going to give you like the most variety of examples. You can look at some really interesting textures where you can take something like this or take something like this and really sort of zoom in and look at some really interesting ways that things repeat. These are like some macro images of like plant cells and animal cells and stuff like that. We have newspapers. They also, if you're not sort of reading all of this stuff, there is, if you zoom in, there's repetition, lines, color, and of course it has like a little different texture than a regular piece of paper. And you can even play around with paper, like you can add water to it and kind of destroy it and kind of work with it that way. Okay. I have some old drawings, other things I can use for texture and materiality. Catalogs are really great because you can get some interesting colors and patterns and little pieces of things, like, you know, I can kind of cut out this table, you know, use some of this black color right here. And the great thing about magazines and catalogs is that the print quality is really, really amazing, and it's way, way better than a home printer. So if you're trying to print out this color, for example, this is gonna give you like the best version of that, rather than like if you put it on your computer and you print it out. I can also sort of look at some settings that can be part of my background, but I would definitely sort of like collect things and make my own sort of background. Other things, graph paper, transparencies, more sort of like transparent paper. Fabric is great because you can you can dye it yourself. As long as you're not washing it, you can obviously dye it with your own sort of diluted paint or watercolor, and spices such as turmeric and hibiscus and other teas that you can use. Sheer fabric, thick fabric, can give you a variety of textures. Other, you know, clothes that you don't wear anymore that you can repurpose, cut up, and play around with. Okay, so I want you guys to look around your house, see what you can find, and share.